There's a film I watched many years ago. They wanted to get rid of the queen, so they hatched a plot. The head of the guards went to his friend and said the friend should lie to the king that he's been having an affair with the queen. So the king will get rid of the queen and he will reward his friend. He will give him gold and silver and houses and he'll be rich. And at first, the friend was a bit reluctant that, no, I don't want to do it. But the guard, said, don't worry, I know the king very well. He'll just get rid of the queen and you'll be rich. We don't want her as our queen. So he agreed eventually, went to the king and said he's been having an affair with the queen. So true to word, the king was furious. He banished the queen from the village, told her never to come back again. And she left sobbing, protesting her innocence. This is not true, she didn't do this. But nobody believed her. And then so the man wanted to get up and leave. The king said, no, you dare have an affair with my wife, go and kill him. So he looked at his friend, the guard, and was thinking, okay, this is not part of the deal. But the guard pretended not to know him, and this was how this guy was killed, and even though he lied. So I was reminded of this because at the end of 1 Samuel, we saw that Saul and Jonathan had been killed in battle by the Philistines, and the men of Jabesh Gilead took the bodies and buried Saul. Now, at the beginning of 2 Samuel, which we're treating today, David is in Ziklag, where he has been living since he's been running away from Saul. And there comes a young man. He runs to Ziklag to go and give the news to David that Saul and Jonathan are dead. They've been killed. And David asks him, how are you sure about this news? How do you know that Saul is dead? He wanted to be sure. He wanted to be certain. And the man says, well, I was going about, I saw lots of slain people on the floor, and I saw the king, and he said, please kill me, I'm deeply wounded, I don't want the Philistines to take me, so just kill me. And so I took the sword and I killed him, and that's how I am sure, and this is his crown, that's how I'm sure that Saul is dead. And then David tells him that from your own mouth you have pronounced judgment on yourself. How dare you raise your hand towards the Lord's anointed? You were not afraid to kill the king. So David orders this man, this young Amalekite man, to be killed. And that's how this man died. I'm pretty certain he was expecting a reward, since Saul had been trying earnestly to kill David. So he must have thought, this is my opportunity. I'm going to be given gold and silver. I'm going to be wealthy. Instead, he met his doom. So after this, David laments. He sobs. His heart is broken. He mourns for Jonathan, also his bosom friend. He sings the song of the bow, how are the mighty fallen, telling nothing Gath, do not let the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Because usually when the men come back from battle, the women make up songs and they start dancing about the conquest, about how they were victorious. So if you remember, when they crossed the Red Sea, Miriam, she took her timbrel, she made up a song with all the Israelites. They started dancing about how the horse and the rider has been thrown into the sea, talking about the Egyptians. And if you also remember, when David killed Goliath, the women also made up a song about how Saul had killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. So it was customary for women to make up songs. So David was kind of saying, don't let the daughters of the Philistines hear, because they will make up songs to say Saul had been killed and Jonathan had been killed and how they were victorious. And after that, David now moves to Hebron in Judah. He's no longer on the run. He'd been in exile for many years. He could not live among his own people. He could not live in his own city. He had to be running up and down because of Saul. He now moves to Hebron in Judah. So when he moved there, the people of Judah came to him and made him king. They are king because Saul is now dead. They do not have a king. They made David king, but he's only king over Judah, one tribe out of 12. But he becomes their king. So then he commends the men of Jabesh Gilead for what they did, for their courage, their bravery, and what they did to do honor Saul. You remember when Saul first became king, he went to rescue the men of Jabesh Gilead. They'd never forgotten it, so they came. So that's why they went and they rescued Saul's body, you know, buried him. David commended them for their action, for their bravery. You know, if it was nowadays, they'll be giving an award for bravery. I'm pretty sure David also gave them awards. So Abner, the head of Saul's army, makes Saul's youngest son, Ishbosheth, king over the remaining 11 tribes. Now David is king over one tribe, Judah. Abner makes Ishbosheth king over the remaining 11 tribes. So now Israel has got two kings, one over one, one over 11. Because Saul's family opposes David greatly. But God gives David success. In anything he does, God gives him success. One day, Ishbosheth, the king over 11 tribes, accuses Abner, the head of Saul's army, of sleeping with one of Saul's concubines. So Abner is furious about this. He says, what are you trying to tell me? You know, how dare you accuse me of this? I made you king, remember? You know, so now I'm going to go and join David. And I will make sure that David becomes king over the whole Israel. Accusing me of this. What have I to do with you? So Abner deflects and he goes to David's side. But David, maybe as a test to see if Abner is sincere, if he's loyal, he says, go and bring me my wife, Michal. Now, Michal is Saul's daughter that was married to David, but Saul had given her to another man. So David wants his wife back. And Abner goes off and takes Michal away from her husband. Even the husband was crying and following them along the way. Abner tells him to go back home and leave them alone. The man went back and he brought Michal back to David. So I think then David must have thought, all right, maybe he is loyal. You know, he can join David's side. Abner visits all the leaders all over Israel. He starts campaigning. He's like David's campaign manager for David to become king over all Israel, not just of Judah. Now Joab, the head of David's army, he hears about Abner and he's not happy that Abner has joined David's side. Either he's jealous because Abner is a very powerful man and he might take Joab's position, or because Abner killed his brother, so he might want to revenge, or maybe just doesn't trust him. He feels that David is too trusting. Anyway, he kills Abner. So when Joab kills Abner, David is not happy about it. He says they're going to think that he had something to do with it. They will think that he ordered Joab to kill Abner and he had nothing to do with it. So he said Abner's blood is not on his head, it's on Joab's head because he did not order Joab to do this. So he gives Abner a state funeral. He weeps, he's sad, he grieves, he fasts over the death of Abner. So after this, two of Ishbosheth's leaders in his army, Ishbosheth, remember, he's Saul's youngest son, and he is the head of the king of 11 tribes. Two men in his army, Rechab and Baanah, they murder Ishbosheth, the king. When after they killed him, they went to tell David that they have now killed Ishbosheth. So David can now be king over the whole Israel. They thought David would be happy, but David orders these two men to be executed for killing the king, you know, for touching the king. They also get killed as the other young man that got killed, that came to give news that Saul had died. Thereafter, they now make David king over all Israel. So he now becomes king not just over one tribe, Judah, but over the whole Israel, 12 tribes. David is 30. The age of 30, he finally becomes king over Israel. So David now moves to Jerusalem, but before he can before he can live in that city, he first has to get rid of the inhabitants, the Jebusites who were living there. They were even mocking him, saying even the lame and the blind can defeat you. But God gives David success. He manages to capture the place, and he starts living in Jerusalem and makes there his capital. And he builds a palace. He has more wives, more concubines, more children. The Philistines came to attack David. David always inquires of the Lord what to do. The Lord told him that he personally, that's God, is going to march before him. So that's to show that this battle is the Lord's, not David's. And God gives David success from it. After this, David went to fetch the ark of the covenant from Kiriath Jearim. Another name for Kiriath Jearim is Bela. If you remember, you know when the Philistines captured the ark and then they returned it to Beth Shemesh, and because 70 inhabitants of Beth Shemesh looked into the ark and God slew them, remember they called the people at Kiriath Jearim to come and take the ark because they were worried that God was going to destroy all of them. So now the ark had been at Kiriath Jearim all these years. I don't know why Saul, during his reign as king, did not bother to take the ark, but it had been at Kiriath Jearim. Now David has gone to take the ark, but they put the ark on a cart instead of carrying it on two poles the way it's been instructed to carry the ark. It has to be like on two poles, and then they carry it, I think, on their shoulder. They didn't do it that way. They put it on a cart, and as it was going, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah tried to steady the ark. He touched it, and God slew him there. And David was cross that God had killed Uzzah, and he was also afraid that, so who can stand in front of this holy God? You know, what can we do? So he was afraid to take the ark with him to Jerusalem as he was planning. So he leaves the ark in the house of Obed-Edom. So Obed-Edom must have been a Levite, because then he will know how to handle the ark. He will know how to look after it, to take care of it. Obed-Edom couldn't have just been an ordinary Israelite. God would have killed all of them. So he must have been a Levite. David leaves the ark in the house of Obed-Edom, and God blessed Obed-Edom's household for 3 months. They were blessed while the ark was there. When David now saw that the Obed-Edom and his family did not die, so God doesn't just kill anybody anyhow, he decides now to come and take the ark to Jerusalem, and he has priests and he has Levites with him. So with every 6 steps that they move, they sacrifice. Every 6 steps they sacrifice, just to make sure that they are doing it in the right way, because this is Yahweh that they are carrying to Jerusalem. And David is dancing, you know, before the ark. He took off his clothes because he was so happy, he was so excited that finally the ark is coming home. And his wife Michal looks down from the window, sees how David is dancing and making a show of himself, and she despised him in her heart, wondering that how can the king make such a show of himself like this? He should be dignified. You know, in some churches, there are some pastors, they can't dance because they are the pastors. They just feel that, no, I have to be dignified. I'm the pastor, I mustn't dance. And there are some pastors, when you see them, they just go for it. They dance, they're just so, they're rejoicing because they know they're dancing before the Lord. They don't care if their church members are looking at them. They just dance, you know. So David, he didn't care that he's the king. He's dancing before Yahweh, and he just went for it. And when the ark finally reached Jerusalem, David sacrificed. He blessed all the people. he gave them gifts. But his wife, Michal, told him off. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Do you know how you have shamed and disgraced yourself before all the people? Were you supposed to conduct yourself like that? You had, you just let yourself go, no respect. Even the maids were looking at you. They will not have any respect for you, for the way you behaved. And David told him that, remember, God chose me over your father's house to become king of Israel. And those servants that you said will not respect me, they will give me honor. I was dancing before the Lord my God, not before any man. And the Bible says that Michal never had children. Now here, I've heard some people say God cursed Michal that day, blocked her womb, she became barren. The Bible does not say this. So another alternative could be that David just did not touch her anymore, did not live with her as a husband and wife anymore, so that she will not have children to continue Saul's family. We don't know, but the Bible is silent. The Bible does not say that God cursed her, she became barren. It's not mentioned there. So all that would just be assumptions. We don't know, but she never had children. Then David wanted to build a temple for the Lord. He said the Lord has just been in the Ark of the Covenant. He has a beautiful palace. He wants to build an ark, and God told him through the prophet Nathan that he's not the right person to build the ark. His hands are bloody. He's killed too many people. He doesn't want him to build it. He's been living in tents, and there's nowhere that can contain him. Both heaven and earth belongs to him. So his son Solomon would build a house for him and not David. But he will establish David's family forever. There will always be a king on the throne from David's line. He will bless David's family. His son will have peace during his time, so the son can build the temple. Because David's always had to fight one battle or the other, one war or the other. So he's not the right person to build the temple. And David was fine with it, because in First Chronicles, which we'll see soon, he helps his son Solomon prepare all the materials and everything for the building of this temple. Some other parents would have been jealous, not want their child to succeed, that they were rejected. The child was accepted, but David, he doesn't behave like that. So David fought many wars, and God was always with him. God gave him success. Then afterwards, David remembered his covenant with Jonathan, because Jonathan told him that when he becomes king, he should look after him and his family. And David remembers this covenant. Usually, when a new king comes on the throne, he kills all the family of the previous king so that they won't cause any trouble for him. But David had made this covenant with Jonathan that he's not going to do that. So he now asks, is there no one left of Saul's household? There must be. And then the man Ziba, Saul's servant, tells David about Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. He's lame in both feet. His nurse took him and was running and dropped him, and he became lame. And he's been living at Lodibar. So David sends for Mephibosheth. So he sends for him. Mephibosheth comes there. He's fearful that maybe David wants to kill him so he can completely eradicate Saul's family. But David treats him with dignity. David treats him with courtesy, friendship, and says, all the days of your life you eat with me at my table, and he gives him all the Saul's land back, that this is all yours, and Ziba and his sons will be your servant. As they served your dad Saul, they will now serve you, so that everything is fine. And Mephibosheth was a bit, he wondered why David would treat him. He said, I'm nothing but a dead dog, and he said, no, I had this covenant with your dad, and so I am, that's why it's good to be good, because you just don't know when it will be repaid. Some good deeds you do, it's not for you, it's for your children, so some things you do, your children will enjoy it in the future, not just for you. So it's good to be good. Somebody will see your children in future, and they will have a problem and say, whose child are you? Oh, my mom was Tina. What Tina is that? Tina that had that YouTube channel, the Bible. Oh really? I knew Tina. She was good to me. And the person will bless the child just because of something I'd done years earlier. You just never know when it will be repaid. Now, Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, died. David heard that Nahash had died, and his son Hanun was now king. So David sent his men to go and pay condolences to Hanun for the death of his dad. That's all David did. But Hanun's men told the king that, do you think David really cares that your dad died? They have come to spy out the land. What's wrong with you? So Hanun took the men David sent and cut off their beards and cut off their clothes, left them half naked. So when this one sent message to David that this is what happened to them, David said, okay, they should stay outside the city until their beards grew back. I think that time the men had long beards, so it was kind of a disgrace. It was a shame to not have beard until it grew back, and that now caused a war. It's misunderstanding. So that's what happens when you listen to bad counsel from people. They say, yeah, this is what she's planning. It wasn't what she's planning, but you listen to it and it just goes, it blows far. So anyway, and then we now come to the low point of David's life, Bathsheba. It was the time when kings go out to battle. It was spring. David was supposed to go out with his men. God knows why he stayed behind. He decided to stay behind. He was in his palace. It was hot because it's spring. His men were at the battlefield. David was on top of his roof. Bathsheba was in her garden having a bath. There must have been a wall to protect her, but because he's on the roof, he can see inside. Sees Bathsheba bathing. She's beautiful. He tells his servants to go and ask about her. The word comes back that she's married. Her name is Bathsheba. David sends for her, sleeps with her. She goes back home. She gets pregnant. So she sends message to the king, I am with child. Her husband, Uriah, is in David's army at the battlefield. David sends for Uriah. He wants Uriah to go home and sleep with his wife so they can pass that pregnancy on to the husband. But Uriah refuses to go home to sleep with his wife because the men are at battle. David tries everything, even tries to get him drunk. Uriah refuses to go home. That how can he go and sleep with his wife? How can he sleep on a comfortable bed when his comrades are on the battlefield? Where there's shells flying around, bullets flying everywhere, and you want me to go home and eat and drink and sleep with my wife. So he refuses to go. So David now sends Uriah back to the battlefield with a letter. He tells him to give the letter to the head of the army. The head of the army reads the letter. He sees there that David said to put Uriah and the fiercest, the front of the battle, near the wall where the battle is fierce, and then everybody should withdraw back from him. That means he has no protection. And Uriah carries this letter, not knowing that it's his own death sentence. It's from the king. He takes it, the order is carried out, Uriah dies. And obviously not just Uriah, other people will die as well, because it would be just so obvious if it was just Uriah who died. Other innocent people died in this battle. They took word to King David, and told him that Uriah is dead. After Bathsheba mourns for her husband, David takes Bathsheba, marries her. She's now with him in the palace. God is displeased. David thought he got away with it. Nobody knows, but God saw. God is displeased, sends Prophet Nathan to David. Prophet Nathan goes there. He starts with a story. There was a very rich man. He had lots of cattle, lots of sheep, lots of everything. There was a poor man who had just one lamb. He treated that lamb as his daughter. The lamb slept on his bed. He fed the lamb. The lamb did everything. One day, the rich man had a visitor. Instead of the rich man to take his own animal to kill for a feast for his visitor, he took the only lamb that the poor man had and slaughtered that and gave it to his guest. David was furious. He told Nathan that that man has to die, and he has to pay fourfold back for the lamb of the poor man, because it's in Exodus 22:1. If you steal a sheep, you have to pay it back fourfold. And David knows the law. David knows the Bible. You know, back in Deuteronomy, one of the things was the king has to write down all the Torah himself with his own hand and read it every day. So David knew the scriptures just as Saul knew the Torah. So he said he has to pay it back fourfold. That was when Nathan said, "You are the man. This is what you have done." And David said he has sinned against the Lord. You know, have mercy on me, O Lord, according to thy loving kindness, according to your tender mercies. You know, do not take your Holy Spirit from me. If you desire the sacrifice, I will give it to you. But the sacrifice you want is a contrite and a broken spirit. O Lord, thou will not despise. Psalm 51. You know, and then David was remorseful. And Nathan told him that he will not die for what he did, but the child will die. You know, the sword will not depart from his home. So much, his son is going to sleep with all his concubines in the presence of all Israel, you know, openly. So all these prophecies came to pass. And then the child becomes sick. David starts praying, you know, he was interceding for the child. Maybe God will show kindness. Maybe God will show mercy. David would not eat. He was fasting. He would not rise up from the floor. He was just praying. And the child died. So the servants were afraid to tell David. But David eventually arose and he washed and he ate and he worshipped the Lord. And when the servants said, when the child was alive, you could not stop praying and fasting and crying. And now that the child is dead, you just rose up suddenly and you are eating. He says, yes, because I thought while the child was still alive, God will show me mercy and heal the child. But now that the child is dead, there's no need for me to fast because the child can't come back. But I will go and meet the child eventually when my time is up. And then God blesses Bathsheba and David with another son, Solomon. So then they have Solomon. Now, David has lots of children. One of his sons, Amnon, that's his first child, loves his stepsister, Tamar. Tamar is Absalom's sister. Absalom is another child of David, another son of David. He loves Tamar. He makes a plot, he makes a plan of how he will get Tamar. Tamar is a virgin, young girl. You know, Amnon feigns to be sick. David tells Tamar to go and cook for her brother. She goes there to cook for her brother. Amnon ends up raping Tamar and then throwing Tamar out. She goes home crying and wailing. Absalom sees his sister. He knows what his brother Amnon has done to his sister. He tells Tamar not to worry about it. Just leave it. He's our brother. So she starts living with her brother Absalom. You know, she's disgraced. You know, it will be difficult for her to get a husband. She has been used. You know, she's been defiled, and this happened by her own brother. The Bible says Absalom did not tell his brother Amnon good or bad. He kept it within himself. For 2 years, he was plotting how he was going to kill Amnon. And I'm pretty certain within those 2 years, he and Amnon must have been doing brotherly things together. They must have been going out together, having a laugh together, having a drink together. But the Bible says for 2 years, he plotted. After 2 years, Absalom asked the king to come. It's time for the sheep shearing and when they will feast. Because during the time of sheep shearing, they feast. If you remember Nabal, it was during the sheep shearing that David sent his men to go and ask Nabal for food for his men. And Nabal was rude, saying that's how servants run away from their masters. Why should I give him food? And you know, David ended up marrying Abigail. All this is in 1 Samuel, which I've already taught. I'll put the clip behind this one if you've not watched it yet. So it was during the time of the sheep shearing. Absalom says David and the family should come And David says, no, all of them cannot go. You won't be able to feed all of us, you know, that kind of thing. And Absalom says, okay, can Amnon come then with me? And David is a bit suspicious. Why should Amnon come? You know, but Absalom manages to persuade his dad to let Amnon come with him. And Amnon goes with Absalom to the sheep shearing, where Absalom kills Amnon. So then somebody takes a message to David that all your kids are dead, all of them. So David is lamenting, is wailing that all his kids are dead, before somebody now comes to say that, no, it's only Amnon that's dead, and Absalom has run away. So Absalom flees after he killed his brother. David is lamenting the son that died, and Absalom also that ran away. And then Joab plans how to bring Absalom back. He succeeds later, in this about 2 or 3 years, in bringing Absalom back. But the king does not meet with Absalom. So after a while, you know, another woman comes and talks to David. David finally has a meeting together with Absalom. So after they have now reconciled back, Absalom now plots how he wants to be king over Israel. So he goes about, he wins the hearts of the people. You know, he tells them what he would do if he's the king, you know, what his father is not doing right. And so he wins people to his side. People become loyal to Absalom. And then Absalom makes himself king. You know, so when David hears that Absalom has made himself king, and a lot of people are followed Absalom, they're loyal to him, he has to flee Jerusalem. So he lives with his wives, his children, with those loyal men with David. They leave Jerusalem, they have to flee. If not, Absalom wants to come and kill his dad. They flee, they are crying. Ahithophel, who is Bathsheba's granddad, I think, he used to be David's counselor, joins Absalom. When David hears that Ahithophel has joined Absalom, he prays that all his counsel to Absalom should be turned to foolishness. See, Ahithophel is a wise counselor. He counsels David, and now he's joined with Absalom. So David prays that his counsel should be turned to foolishness. So David flees, you know, with all the people. Ahithophel gives Absalom counsel that they should go now. They will be able to capture David and kill him, because they'll be tired. He has so many people, they won't be able to go far and all of that. But Hushai, who is secretly on David's side but pretends to be on Absalom's side, tells Absalom that that's not a good idea. That's a foolish idea. Don't listen to Ahithophel. David and his men, they are skilled. If you go out there now, they will kill you. You know, they are very strong, they are powerful, they know how to fight. So Absalom listens to Hushai instead of Ahithophel. So Ahithophel is not happy that Absalom did not listen to him. He went home and he killed himself. He hanged himself, that Absalom did not listen to his counsel. And Hushai managed to get words to David that don't sleep where you are. Cross the river tonight, just in case Absalom changes his mind. This is the counsel Ahithophel gave him, but I managed to turn it. But he may change his mind, so don't sleep there. So David and his men and everybody had to cross the river Jordan that night. They did not stay there. So Ziba takes Ziba, remember the servant of Saul, he takes provisions to David. He provides him with a lot of things. David asks of Mephibosheth, and Ziba lies that he didn't want to come. He said now he's going to be king. You know, he's of Saul's family. David's not supposed to be king anyway. But later we find out that Ziba lied about it. And David believed Ziba and gave Ziba all the land that he gave Mephibosheth, that Ziba should take all of it. He will deal with Mephibosheth later. So as David is going, Shimei, one man called Shimei of Saul's family, he sees David running, fleeing from Absalom. And Shimei starts, yeah, good for you. Now you are running from your Saul. You're a bloody man. You killed Saul and all the family. Blood is on your hands. Now your own son Absalom wants to kill you. Good for you. He takes stones. He's throwing it at David. He's throwing it at David. He takes stand. He's throwing it at David. He's insulting David. David's man says, let me kill this man. How dare he talk to you like this? Doesn't he know you are the king? David said, don't kill him. Just leave him alone. Even my own son wants me dead. How much more somebody from Saul's family? Maybe when God sees all what I'm going through, he will have mercy on me. And who knows, maybe God told him to come and insult me. Just leave him alone. They start going. Shimei is still insulting him, throwing stones at him all the way while David is going. So so after they settle down, David's men now decide to go and fight against Absalom's men. David tells the people that, they will be successful. They should treat Absalom gently. He still loves him, even though he's the son. He wants to go with them out to battle. But they say no. David should not go with them. David should stay in the city and wait for them to return. Which in a way is good. Because can you imagine during the battle, if David and Absalom come face to face, who kills who? I know Absalom will not hesitate to kill his dad. But would David be able to kill Absalom? So God in his infinite mercy prevents this from happening. The men forbid David from going out into the battle with them. The same way when David joined with the Philistines and he wanted to join with the Philistines battle with the Israelites. Remember, the Philistine men told the king that they don't trust David. They don't want him to join them. Because maybe during the battle, he will turn sides against them. And even though David said, no, I'm loyal to King Achish and nothing, they said no. So God in his infinite mercy also made that possible so that David will not fight against his own people. So David stays back. He tells them that not to harm Absalom, to be gentle with him. All the men heard David say this. So they went out to battle. David's men defeat Israelites, because David's men are skilled fighters. They defeat the Israelites. Absalom sees David's men. I think he's trying to flee. He was on his mule, but his hair gets caught in the branch of the acorn, the oak tree. His hair gets stuck there. So, and then the mule carries on going. So Absalom is left hanging by his hair. He can't free himself. So a young man in David's army sees Absalom hanging, and he goes to tell Joab that he saw Absalom hanging, and he says that I would have given you a reward if you had told me you killed him. Why did you leave him there? And the man said, if you give me double the reward, I will not kill him. I heard when David told all of us to be gentle with Absalom. How can I kill the king's son? He said we should be gentle with him. And you want me to kill him? I can't do that. So the man said, I'm wasting my time talking to you. He went and he killed Absalom hanging there. So, and took his body and put it there and put stones over it. So he blew the horn. So the Israelites all fled because they know that their king is dead. So Ahimaaz wanted to take the news to David that they have won the battle. Joab refuses. He says no, Ahimaaz should not take the news to David. He chooses a foreigner from Cush, that the foreigner should go and take the news to David. But Ahimaaz insisted, let me go and tell David that we won. Let me go and tell David. Joab says, okay, go and tell David. So they start running, Ahimaaz and the foreigner, they start running. Ahimaaz gets to David first. David's first question is, how is Absalom? He says he doesn't know, but they won the war. The foreigner comes, Cush. David asks him, how is Absalom? And the Cush said that Absalom, well, in a way, he told David that Absalom is dead. So David starts lamenting. He starts crying, oh, Absalom, my son, my son, Absalom, my son, Absalom. He is so distressed. He's so distraught. He was just crying. He was weeping for his son, Absalom, my son, Absalom, my son. Joab was furious. He went to David to speak to David. that you are going, all the men are going to desert you. You have turned this day into a day of mourning, a day of lamentation. The men who went to fight the battle, they all came back into the city quietly, with their heads bowed down, as if they lost. Normally, they should come into the city with great fanfare and rejoicing. But you have turned this day into a day of sadness. So you prefer your enemy over your friends. These men, they sacrifice their lives. They risk their own lives to save your neck from your enemy, your son Absalom, who wanted to kill you. And this is how you are behaving. You are making everybody down. Nobody can eat. Nobody can rejoice. Everybody are just skulking quietly off to their homes, thinking that they have done something wrong. You need to come out. If not, everybody will leave you. Then you won't have anybody. And then we will see what will happen to you. So David had to take Joab's advice. He cheered up. He came out and he welcomed back the men. And he congratulated them for winning the battle. And then they said, okay. So the men of Judah came and said, okay, they want King David back. So he started going back to Jerusalem, you know, took all his people. They're not going back. Absalom is dead. They're not going back. On the way back, Shimei, you remember Shimei? Shimei came out. He was bowing. He said, David, I am sorry. Don't listen to me. Sometimes I just talk without thinking. I'm very sorry, you are our king. You know, and David's man said, let me kill him. David said, no, don't kill him. I'm going back. I'm not the king. Nobody is dying today. It's a day of celebration, a day of rejoicing. Just leave Shimei. Shimei, don't worry. You are fine. Though later, we see that David commanded his son Solomon to kill Shimei. But, you know, at that day, he said Shimei is fine. There's a man called Sheba. He opposes David. And he manages to persuade the Israelites to leave David. But this Sheba eventually gets killed. Then there was famine for 3 years. Saul inquires that why, not Saul, David inquires that why is there famine in the land. It means they must have sinned in some way. Then they find out that Saul had killed some Gibeonites. You remember the Gibeonites? They went to deceive Joshua. In the book of Joshua, I've taught it. I'll put the clip behind this. They went to deceive Joshua. But Joshua had already made a covenant with them before the deception was found out. So Joshua said they will live peacefully amongst the Israelites. But Saul had broken that covenant by killing some of the Gibeonites. So because a covenant is a covenant, God was now punishing Israel. So there was a famine in the land. So the Gibeonites now came to David, and David said, okay, what do you want me to do? You know, they had offended, they'd done wrong, they'd broken the covenant. And the Gibeonites said, we want 7 of Saul's family. You know, that's all we want. We don't want any money or nothing. We just want 7 of Saul's family. So David gives 7 of Saul's family to the Gibeonites, and they killed these, and then, you know, they were appeased. And there was other wars again with the Philistines, but David always had success. And then David praised God by songs, by poems, by praying. And then David decided to count the Israelites. He decides to count the Israelites. Joab told him not to do this. He did not listen to Joab. He counted the Israelites. After he counted them, God was furious with David for counting the Israelites. And God gave him 3 choices. He said either there should be a famine for 3 years, David should choose, or God should leave let the enemies deal with David for 3 months, or God himself should, like, there will be a pestilence, a plague for 3 days. So which one will David choose? David said, it's better I fall in the hands of the Lord. God is merciful. God will show him kindness. Because if he should allow his enemies for 3 months, they will kill all of them without mercy. So the plague started. And before God stopped it, 70,000 of them had died. Before God told the angel to stop the slaughter, 70,000 men died. And David built an altar. He said it was him who sinned. You know, all these men have died. He prayed to God. He brought Araunah's threshing floor, where he built the altar. And that Araunah's threshing floor, the location is Mount Moriah, where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac, and it's also where Solomon will later build the temple. And this, beloved, is the end of 2 Samuel. Thanks for being with me on this journey so far. So I will meet you again in 1 Kings. Consider subscribing to my channel. God bless you. Bye.